We have some exciting news about the Kinship Home Study update, which will go live September 30th. So similarly to how we're developing our wax, we're in the same vein recreating the home study process for kinship caregivers. And as a sort of stopgap measure and sort of test run of the redefined process, we created a home study update form that's going to go live in the fall. And we will be using feedback from that along with the national standards to draft our kinship home study, which our kinship home study group is well underway with. And we'll be seeking community feedback in the fall with the revisions and plan to go live in summer of 2025. So when we approve kinship caregivers, we are approving that specific to a child placed in their home or that they want to have placed in their home. So every time a new child is added to a kinship home, we have to update the home study to include information about that child. There are many times when maybe a new baby is born or a sibling is placed in the kinship home that was previously approved, that we need to update the home study. We also need to update a home study if we're adding adoption requirements or if a family that was approved as an unlicensed caregiver wants to add a license to their home. Currently, our home study, our full home study, is used for both community foster parents and kinship caregivers. And when we're updating a home study, we're refilling out that entire home study form. So we've heard feedback from assessment workers in particular, those writing the home studies, that the current process has created pain points for caregivers, staff, and agencies, and making them deal with unnecessary barriers that's slowing the process down for kinship caregivers. We know overall that our current process isn't working well, that we, with our single system where kinship caregivers are following our community foster home WACs, we do allow waivers for that, but it's causing confusion and stress for staff and caregivers to figure out what can be waived, what can't be waived, how do we make this, kinship caregiver sort of fit into this community foster care mold. The licensing process is cumbersome. The overall process and home study is labor intensive, potentially re-traumatizing to kinship caregivers, and it's taking too long to complete and issue kinship licenses. For the home study, there's duplicative questions and information. Applicant history doesn't change, but we're forced to sort of refill out that section while we're updating their home studies, which happens very frequently now. So we are taking action now. There's no reason to wait. So our very first deliverable in the Kinship Licensing Standards Project is this updated, this Kinship Home Study Update form. It's grounded in the National Kinship Standards with DCYF, tribal, and partner expertise included in the update. It simplifies and streamlines the home study update process, and it allows us to get some early feedback that we can incorporate into our new kinship home study that we're planning for the summer of 25. We anticipate that this is a temporary stopgap measure between now and the summer of 2025. We may update the form again in 2025 or may get rid of it entirely after that. We'll see what happens. So what's different? Again, we've aligned it with the national kinship standards, got rid of some of the questions that really weren't applicable to kinship caregivers. We're focusing only on those critical questions that pertain to the kinship caregivers and the specific child being placed in their home. And it removes unnecessary questions and requirements that were included for community foster homes. So we removed questions for community foster homes. We removed the requirement of historical information that doesn't change. And we removed a lot of data points for indicators that we have in our current home study that was previously collected when the initial home study was created. We streamlined the form and refined some of the questions to make it make more sense for kinship caregivers. So as a result, our home study report that assessment workers and CPAs will be filling out has a 40% reduction in questions. So what is the same is that it really looks almost identical when child welfare staff or courts are reviewing the form. It will look almost identical to our current home study. Instead, it says Kinship Home Study Update instead of Kinship Home Study. And the reasons why we would use this again are to add kinship children to a kinship home, adding adoption requirements, or converting an unlicensed kinship care to a licensed kinship care, including when adding children to the home. It's still going to be completed in WCAP by DCYF licensing staff, child placing agencies, and tribal child placing agencies. The form will continue to be reviewed by child welfare, adoption courts, and other staff, and the caregivers will still be able to review the resulting report. But the overall process is really unchanged. It's just simpler and more streamlined. So after that first home study is complete, when addition of children or another qualifying event requires a home study update, the staff will continue to meet with the caregivers, gather updated information, complete the new home study update form, share that report back out with the caregiver, and then ultimately approve the update on the new form. So the impacted teams are the folks that are really filling out these forms. So assessment, CPAs, and tribal CPAs. They're going to start using this kinship home study update form when updating a previously completed home study. For all DCYF, CPAs, and tribal staff, when it's adding new children to a licensed kinship home or adding adoption requirements to a licensed kinship home. DCYF staff will also utilize this when converting a home from an unlicensed kinship care to a licensed kinship care or adding children to an unlicensed kinship care home. They're going to stop using that home study, the full home study form when updating kinship home studies, but they're going to continue using the regular home study form when doing new kinship homes, new community homes, or updates to community homes. And they'll continue to share those reports with the applicants. If you're someone who reviews home studies, the impacted result is basically that you might notice this new form is being used when you're reviewing case information. You'll see this form when a new home study update has been completed on a kinship home. You're not going to stop doing anything. It's not going to change your work in any way. And you'll continue reviewing home studies when it's appropriate. So the only real impact to you is that you might see a home study update along with your home study.